talk about the paper now. Short answers, so fun and fresh. Short answers, I feel like a lot of you guys will come to love because in comparison to a 25-mark essay, like, trust me, and I mean this in other subjects as well, for English short answers as well, and for any subjects that you guys are doing that have short answers, take advantage of them. It is so much easier to get 3 out of 3 and 4 out of 4 than it's going to be to get 20 out of 20 on your common module essay or 25 out of 25 on your Russia essay or your national study. I think short answers in HSC altogether, but especially in modern, short answers are the trick to pulling up your marks, because again, it's easier to pull in those shorter, like, little answers. So short answer is 50% of your paper. Yay. So section 1 and section 4 are made up of short answer questions, which is why it's really important to practice the skill. And I feel like one mistake that I was falling into was focusing so much on the essays, because I was like, oh, it's 25 marks, it's 25 marks. But in the end, so is your Nazi, like the core section, and so is section 4. They all are like equally split up. So you can focus and you can stress all about like your Russia essay, but your core study and these short answer questions is the exact same weighting, and it's easier to actually do better in this section. So let's connect the dots on that one. I had to have that talk with myself multiple times throughout year 12 because it was so easy to focus on the essays, and I feel I was exactly the same for English, where I was always focusing on like, oh, mod A, mod B, mod C, like all the modules. Short answers as well. And short answers is the easiest place to get full marks because of the nature of it across a lot of subjects. So that's why I wanted to do short answer skills, because I feel like it's neglected. They can range in marks anywhere from 1 to 8 marks, but also 9 to 15 marks, which are like mini extended responses. I haven't seen anything bigger than 12 in modern, but it's all a range. Now the short sections, now, like, I know I just said like, oh, it's easy. It's easy to get full marks. It's easy if you're treating it and you're studying for it the right way. If you're neglecting it, it is one of the easiest places to lose marks, and you can lose more marks than you do in the essay. So a lot of people think like, oh, it's just short answers, I won't study for it, like it's fine. Like, I would, like, how hard can it be? But even if like these are like, I'd say these are pretty good marks for short answer. Like if you get like 2 out of 3, then 4 out of 5, 5 out of 7, 7 out of 10, that's 18 out of 25. That's literally like getting 18 out of 25 on the essay, which is 72%. And that's only from losing like 1 to 3 marks on each question, which doesn't even sound like, that doesn't even sound bad. While like a good essay for like your national study could be 21 out of 25, and that's 84%. So that's just how easily you can lose the marks if you're not taking it seriously. And a lot of students don't take it seriously. The average isn't too good for the short answer section. So that's why I really wanted to focus on it today. I know like that literally contradicts everything I just said. But short answer is easy and is a game changer as soon as you have the perspective that it is. You need to get it in your mindset that it's hard to get 25 out of 25 in the essays. And it's really hard to get into those higher range, like the higher band 6 for the essay. While for the short answer, getting 3 out of 3, 5 out of 5, you surely don't have to do that much. And you just have to fill the lines. I'm not going to downplay it because with the sources it is hard, and we're going to go through that. But this is a section, if you feel like your essay skills aren't the strongest, don't worry, because that's 50%. The other 50% is here. So if you can really smash out short answers, you'll find that it's really going to take up your mark. Now, the structure of your response is dependent on how many marks are allocated it, but no matter what, this is the base. I say it every lecture, so I'm sorry if you're at the modern lecture in Jan, but you're hearing it again. If you want a band 6, you fill the lines. You fill the lines. Do not write less. And then if you really, 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 really want a band 6, like if you were like, I need this band 6, go a little bit over. But I'm talking 1 to 2 lines max. We do not have time to go super, super over. Don't go overboard. The band 6, like, that's just the fact. Like if you want a band 6, the band 6 amount is the recommended amount is the lines that are there. So finish it like that. Roughly speaking, you have about 2 minutes per mark, but time distribution is obviously going to be different depending on the exam. It's not always going to be even. You have 45 minutes in total to complete this section, and a lot of students will finish it in 40. It just depends, and then it's up to you if you want to move on to the next section, have extra time for the essays. or go back and add anything extra to it. I really recommend using the time well. I think that that's why doing a practice section of the past of like this section or doing past papers is important too, because you can kind of find out, okay, on average it takes me 40 minutes, which means I can get an extra 5 minutes for this essay, and you can kind of find out what method is working for you to finish it. But yeah, that is the short answer section. Now, I hate to do this. I'm going to be honest with you. Nothing annoyed me more. One of the worst things I had to learn in class across all my subjects was the task words. You know, identify, assess, analyze. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If my year 12 self knew that like a year and a half later I would be teaching this to other year 12s, I would feel a sense of disappointment. But I mean it. Like, I feel bad because I used to get so annoyed at my teachers for like going on and on about the task word. I was like, nobody actually cares. But the task word is so important. I feel so bad. I hear my year 12 self-judging now. But task word in modern is so important because the structure is going to be dependent on the task word. And the task word is in every single section now because there's no multiple choice and it's specifically just short answer and essays. There will be a task word in every single question. 100% of the paper is going to feature a task word in every question. So that's why it is so important, and knowing the difference so you can also just structure what you need to do and what you don't need to do. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I don't want to hate for this. I'm sorry, but task word is so important. So these are some different task word questions. They aren't just filler words. They tell you exactly what you need to do to answer the question. So a lot of people ignore the task word and just opt to describe. And I was a victim of that because I didn't always listen to the lessons about task words. It's so easy to just describe in modern, especially because modern is mixed where everything you're learning in class is the story of it, but in class time, it's more up to you to make those judgments and to choose like your opinions and your kind of thought process on the content. The class is really just focused on learning the content, and I really saw modern as like the textbook is literally just reading a storybook. Like, it's a storybook with facts. It's just the story of what happened. Um, and again, a lot of the textbooks aren't going to be like, this is the opinion, this is how it is. That's what history is. History is so up to interpretation. So that's really up to you to make those judgments. That's why the task word is so important, because if you aren't using those task words well, you're just going to opt to describe, which is just going to be to story time it. So many of the task words require more critical thinking than others. So there's higher order and lower order task words, and then usually, most cases, the shorter response, the lower order the task word. Guys, I'm so sorry. I promise I'm going to go through it quick, but I just want you to have them just so you can see the difference. So identify is our favorite one. We love identify. Identify in modern is so good because it can be a 2-mark question and you will get 2 marks writing 4 words. So like this one, identify 2 features of Nazi ideology, social Darwinism and totalitarianism. 4 words, 2 marks out of 100 in the whole paper. It sounds small, but it adds up. 2 out of 2. We're getting it. You're literally just stating the key feature or that attribute. You're just stating it. I know people who saw identify and would still fill in like the entire lines they gave you. They might give you 2 lines for identify. You just write like 1, social Darwinism, and 2, totalitarianism. Those are your 2 marks. 3 words. 3 words. So identify, and this is why I think knowing the task words are well, because otherwise you could have spent like 2 minutes and like you could have like defined like one feature of Nazi ideology is social Darwinism, which is blah blah blah. Another feature, you don't even need to waste your time doing that. When it's identify, straight to the point, get on it. Then there's define, where you turn into definition.com, google.com, yeah, get straight onto it. With the core unit, I always recommend having the translation in English, like have the German word and then have the translation in English after. And then, yeah, your definition doesn't necessarily have to be super detailed. It's just got to be enough that you're distinguishing it from other similar words. So this is Lebronson, which is living space, which is the expansionist ideology of the Nazi Party, whereby living space was to be seized from Eastern European populations and transferred to Aryan populations. Done. Full marks. Let's keep going. Okay. We love explain. Explain is just telling how things work. So this is explain the difference between democracy and totalitarianism. Now, a lot of the times when it's those types of terminology, you're going to start with like a definition, like comparison of the each, because that's like the nature of those concepts. And then you'll talk about the differences between the two. And then we've got describe, our absolute favorite. This is storytelling to a max. Main aspects, you're just describing it. Textbook copy, you're literally the textbook blurting it out. That is described. Now, this is where we start to get a little bit worse. Outline isn't too bad. It's really the next ones. Outline, and I really recommend knowing the answer to this question. Outline the key features of the Weimar Constitution, because I feel like the Weimar always comes up, and I don't know if this is a collective experience for modern students, but I don't know why I just ignored the Weimar or I forgot about it when I was studying. I just found that it was just always being forgotten. It was just always being forgotten, but then somehow it came up in my trials, and I was like, oh, I don't love that one. I don't love that one. So I don't know. Let me know if you guys are in the live chat if that is a collective experience or not. But the three major components of it are the Reichstag Chancellor and the President, and then you'd go in to explain all that. If you were ever talking about the Weimar Constitution, you need to talk about Article 48, which is like that emergency term that they can use in the Reichstag to take over. That needs to be spoken about. But outline is just the main features of what happened and just kind of like a summary of it. I feel like outline, explain, and describe very similar. Very similar. So it's mainly being able to distinguish them and just knowing that you're gonna have to write more for those than you would have to for identify or define, just by the nature of it. Like if you're looking at the length, like let's look at how as we're moving along, the length of the responses are getting longer. We've got 4 words, couple lines, and then it's really packing on as we move. Yay! So then we get to the higher task words, guys. Starting not at the worst ones. We've got compare and contrast and then account for. These are notorious, and the higher task words are going to be in your essay questions, so being able to know the difference. Compare and contrast is identify the characteristics or qualities two or more things have in common. So for a compare and contrast question, that is so different to an account for or to an analyze. So different because you're literally comparing like the two. And for this one, it would be Germany and Europe and Japan in the Asia Pacific. This can also come up in the short answers as one of the like the 12 markers. But they do come up in the essay questions as well. You're just more likely to get one of these. These are like the highest order ones. They can come up these, but you're most likely to get them here. This is more for the 12 markers, and then the slight chance that you get them in the essays. And then account for is explain and give reasons for, and account for is usually going to be an argument as well. So that's account for Mussolini's rise to power. This is our favorite, guys. Assess, evaluate, analyze, and to what extent. To what extent? So assess is always got to do with the importance, and same when you're evaluating. So it's always going to be like assess the significance. It'll very much involve the importance of that that impact, where you want to look at the positive, negatives, and the disputable aspects. Then analyze is like breaking it down to its parts, discussing them, and then showing the interrelation. So analyze the changing nature of Soviet foreign policy. And then to what extent is just like the case for that evidence, and to what extent obviously you have to have that judgment of the extent. So in analyze, you're not necessarily always going to have to really push the judgment as much as you would for assess and to what extent. For to what extent, naturally, like if you say to a high extent or to a low extent, that's your judgment. And same for assessment, it's like assess the significance. You're going to have to say how significant it is. While for analyze is much more like a breakdown and like discussion. So you still would have a judgment, but it just wouldn't be, and it wouldn't have to be as pushed as it would in a to what extent or into an assess question. But those are the task words, guys. I'm very sorry. I wanted to fly through them because I promise you, I hated it as well. I really didn't like sitting in class and listening to it. And the way that you have to like listen to it across all your different subjects, like it's not giving. It's not giving. Let's get into source skills. We love sources. So for the source skills, for 1 to 2 mark questions, get straight to the point. Nobody actually cares. You don't need detail. You don't need introduction. You don't need a like starting line, little thesis. Answer the question. Do it as directly as possible with as minimal words as possible. Get straight to it. If it's 1 or 2 marks, why are we worrying about it? And I know that some students, because it's like 2 marks, they're like, oh, but it's still 2 marks. Like I could write 2 sentences. No. 2 answers. 2 answers if it's 2 marks. And usually if it's a 2 mark, they'll be like, it's like the question we saw before where it's like identify 2 features. So just identify them. You have to be like, the 2 features identified are this and this. No, just identify them. Then 3 to 5 mark questions, guys. We've got to be big kids. We've got to use full sentences. You want to do some context. Some. I mean like nothing more than a sentence or like half a sentence if it's 3 marks. No more. No more. And then include at least one piece of evidence, which is like a detail, like or reference to the source. But each point you make, you should kind of have some evidence to back it up. But that's more for like 4 to 5. Like, let's get straight to it. 6 to 8 in modern is where I think it starts to get serious, where like we really got to get on it. When it's 6 to 8, that's where you want to start structuring your responses more, where you have like a very short introduction. I think like 1 point per 2 marks. So if it's 6 mark question, you should have like 3 points that you want to make. So like, let's say this question here outlined the key features of the Weimar Constitution was a 6 mark, then you'd want 3 points. And then your 3 points would be explaining the Reichstag, the Chancellor, and then the President. That's an example of how I would structure that. And then you want at least one piece of evidence per point, preferably more, especially if it's getting up to 8. But